From the very beginning of Deltarune, we've been told that the Titans are synonymous with the end of the world. So when we defeated the one in Chapter 4, I'm sure many of you thought, is that it? Well, not exactly. The prophecy Rousey showed us warns of a much greater catastrophe led by three figures, three Titans. Two resemble the Knight, but the central one is different, larger, more imposing, and with a very distinctive set of horns. And here's where we need to remember what Rousey himself taught us. Dark fountains are a reflection of their creator, and guess what? The Titans are, in essence, dark fountains, just even darker. Curiously, the silhouette of the most powerful Titan in the prophecy perfectly matches one character, Asgore. For this reason and many others, today we're going to connect the dots and show that Asgore will not only be the final boss of Chapter 5, but will also act as the catalyst for the true roaring, thanks to his boss monster status that we learned about in Undertale. Oh, and this old man will be a big help too. But to understand how the most divorced man in all of fiction will become the harbinger of the apocalypse, we first need to establish the fundamental rule that makes it all possible. We have to go back to the Titan we saw in Chapter 4 and demonstrate why it was just an imperfect reflection. Chapter 1. The Reflection. As we established in our previous investigation into the Titans and their true nature, which you should definitely check out by the way, these are colossal beings with a direct link to determination, and of course the Dark Fountains, destined to plunge the Lightner's world into eternal darkness. However, that investigation left us with a glaring contradiction. The Titan that emerged in Chapter 4 didn't match the images from the prophecy. You could argue that the images Rousey shows us are just representations, not an exact picture of how things will unfold. However, the prophecies from the Dark Sanctuary are very specific, showing Lightners like Jockington and Asgore with few changes. So why the discrepancy? The answer is simple. The prophecy didn't fail. What Rousey shows us isn't the event of Chapter 4, but the true roaring. The cataclysm the heroes won't be able to stop. Let's analyze the roaring prophecy again. We see that the roaring isn't caused by one fountain, but three, which rise to reach the Lightner's sky. Three figures emerge from them, two of which look very similar to the Roaring Knight, but in the middle is a very different one, with horns on its sides, and it's the only one we see with the same eyes that appear on the Chapter 4 Titan. All three bear a shape on their face similar to the Determination Soul, another feature they share with the Titan we've already seen. The image is clear. The Titans that emanate from the fountains are these three figures, but if the prophecy shows exactly what will happen, how can they look so much like the Roaring Knight, yet so different from the Chapter 4 Titan? For one, the origin of the Roaring Knight remains a mystery. While many Lightners are prime suspects, the Knight has characteristics that make us doubt it's just a Lightner. It seems more like a fusion of different elements, much like Flowey in Undertale, who was created from the first Golden Flower, Determination, and the remains of Asriel, who also held Chara's soul. So it wouldn't be strange if the Roaring Knight is something similar. A Lightner who has somehow fused with the very darkness and fear from which the Titans originate, and its resemblance to the Titans is very strange. In the roaring, we see these figures emerge from dark fountains, so they must be Titans. But why don't they have the characteristic darkened eyes that cover the middle Titan's body? Why do they look so much like the Roaring Knight? This is where one of the most interesting theories about the Titans comes into play. If they are creations of a Lightner's determination and arise from existing dark fountains, they must follow the same rule that governs dark worlds. They take the form of the being who created them, just like Lancer is a playing card and Queen as a laptop. Look at the first and second Dark Sanctuaries. They are essentially the same shape, but with major distinguishing details, from the world's tone to inaccessible areas, and most importantly, the Darkners who are turned to stone in one are alive in the other, and vice versa. Rousey tells us this is key. The dark fountains that open depend on the darkness the Lightner unleashes, and that darkness varies as if it were a radio frequency. Each frequency gives life to different Darkners when filled with that specific darkness, taking shape from the creator's memory. Therefore, the dark fountain the Roaring Knight opened at the end of the chapter is formed from its darkness and its shape. If we analyze this Titan's characteristics, we see many parallels with the Roaring Knight, a slender humanoid being with a pair of horns and hands with eyes that it attacks with. Every time it's hit, fact, its body distorts in a way very similar to the Roaring Knight. While you could explain the distortion by saying both are beings of the dark element, it doesn't dismiss the other similarities. The prophecy shows the Roaring Knight emerging from two different dark fountains, looking the same in both. This tells us that these three fountains will open simultaneously. Remember what happens right before the Titan is unleashed. The Roaring Knight mocks the heroes, but Susie bluntly retorts that he's going to lose. The Knight's laughter stops, and he proceeds to unleash the Titan. The Roaring Knight wasn't prepared to unleash a Titan. He knows a prophecy requires several Titans to emerge, so why didn't he do it with the first fountain? There was no Gerson to save the day, and the hero's stats were at their lowest. Why wait for a provocation? Simply put, Susie pissed him off and he unleashed it prematurely, before he had everything needed to bring forth the Titan from the prophecy. That's why it was relatively easy to contain. It was vulnerable to attacks and hadn't fully formed. The true roaring will be something much tougher, likely impossible for the heroes to stop. Some even theorize that Chris will become the second Roaring Knight and help unleash the Titans, but that's a theory for another day. It's time to move on from the mysterious knight and focus once and for all on Chapter 2, Titan Asgore. If we accept the mirror rule, the Titans are a reflection of their summoner, the question immediately becomes, who's responsible for the central silhouette in the prophecy? This figure isn't chaotic, it's imposing, it's tragic, and its horns are unmistakable. There's been a lot of speculation. Some connect this image to the lonely statue in Waterfall, but that's a red herring. The answer is much closer and more obvious. If we look forensically through the Lightners, only two families have horns, the Holidays and the Dreamers. And while they aren't identical, the silhouette in the prophecy, that massive frame, that imposing presence, can only belong to one, Asgore. Garrison himself told us in Undertale that Asgore is a boss monster, a species defined by a soul that persists after death. While Deltarune hasn't explicitly confirmed this, translating it to the rules of this world means Asgore possesses a will, a determination far superior to other monsters, a will powerful enough to create a dark world or a Titan. Asgore's psychological profile in both timelines is one of tragedy, a divorced man clinging to a family past that no longer exists. The Asgore of Undertale was a king broken by regret, a man who declared a war he didn't have the courage to finish. But the Asgore of Deltarune is different, and far more dangerous. He may have gone from police chief to a simple florist, but he's now obsessed with a plan to get his family back. A plan that, as we've seen, is disturbingly connected to a dark shard. This Asgore is not the repentant king. He's a monster seduced by hope, a man convinced that a desperate plan can reverse his personal tragedy. He doesn't yet realize the truth. He's not getting his family back. He's being used. He is being positioned as the main pawn in a prophecy that will end the world. He will be the one to unleash the most powerful Titan and trigger the true roaring. And the prophecy also marks something inevitable. Asgore will be the boss to defeat in the next chapter. The Flower Man, trapped in Asylum. The prophecy contains three other boss prophecies. The first refers to Queen's Limousine. The second speaks of Tenna as the Lord of Screens, who ended up taking the Roaring Knight's attacks. And finally, there's the silhouette of Asgore with the king's crown and cape. We know from Toriel that royal traits manifest in dark worlds. So yes, Asgore's fate is sealed. His obsession with flowers is more than just a pathetic attempt to win back Toriel. It's a facade for his real plan, one involving dark fountains, the Dark Shard, and a secret investigation. Asgore is going to cause the roaring. He will unleash a Titan forged in his own image and, crucially, charged with the overwhelming power of a boss monster. A Titan that, unlike the Knight's premature reflection, will be unstoppable, enveloping the land in devastation. And the final proof is in Ralsei's illustration itself. Unlike the other silhouettes, the central Titan is the only one drawn with the dark eyes. For me, this is the definitive proof that it will be the final version. This leads to a question. If this happens in Chapter 5, how is Toby going to make 7 chapters to finish the game? What about Chapters 6 and 7? Well, those questions have already been answered by one of Chapter 4's most beloved characters, Gerson, who recounts the prophecy and hints at what's to come. Chapter 3, Beyond the Field of Pink and Gold. During the battle with Gerson for the Justice Axe, he tells the story of the Lord of the Hammer, a tale based on the prophecy, and each chapter aligns with what we've seen in the game. The March of the Dark King, with the king's defeat and our alliance with Susie. The City of the Shining, Cyberworld, where many battles take place in roller coaster carts. The Isles of Northern Light, with the heroes playing games and finding a lost land, like the Man's Country or the blocked channel where Tenno holds Toriel. The Trials of the Holy Hammer, the battle between Susie and Gerson where he teaches her his philosophy, and when he finally speaks of Chapter 5, he says, "It's clear. Chapter 5 of Deltarune will take place in a garden that ends up consumed by the fire of jealousy. This might be literal, with a garden burning, or it could mean that after Asgore discovers something about Toriel that sends him into an emotional tailspin, he will unleash the Titan, destroying the Dark World and leaving the Light World garden where the fountain was opened in ashes. The roaring begins, and with it, the arrival of Endless Night. The fact that this is triggered by jealousy has led many to theorize that Toriel and Sansa's growing closeness will be the catalyst for Asgore to do something so extreme. This is even more likely given the legend of the Deltarune. His desire for his plan to return his family, coupled with his fear of seeing a new resident of hometown getting closer to his ex-wife than he is, will cause him to make the worst decision of all, destroying everything. After darkness covers all, the Darkners are petrified, and the Lightners are lost in the shadows. Nothing more is written, confirming that the next chapter is where we'll see the roaring. In fact, Gerson states, his words are more than just a call to action. They reveal that after the roaring, there is nothing. The darkness is eternal, and no one has written what comes next. His questions to Susie are the key to what's ahead. The decisions made up to Chapter 5 will show their consequences, and what the player and Susie choose to do will determine what we see in Chapter 6 and 7. Although Gerson died before finishing his story, he says there was one more chapter, Chapter 6. This could be what the prophecy says happens after the roaring. The next part of the prophecy causes Susie to shatter it, swearing she'll never let that happen. A path to save the world that seems to come at a great cost. Many expect a sacrifice to be the end of the Dark Worlds and the Darkners, wiping them from existence to save the Lightners, leaving those adventures and friends behind like a half-remembered dream. The reason Susie destroys this part of the prophecy is that it clashes with her desire to make everything last forever, to not lose the one place where she feels accepted. Gerson responds to her wish. Interestingly, Susie replies that Chris is the one with the pen, referring to their weapon in the Dark Worlds, while hers is a brush or something. This is fascinating because Gerson replies. And it's here that Gerson realizes the terrible irony. Chris, following the player's decisions, holds the pen, the weapon, the ink, the power of determination to write the story. But Susie holds the white pen, the eraser, the conscience, the hope to overwrite the darkness. The ending of Deltarune is a direct conflict between the player's power and Susie's will. Gerson knows it. Chris, as the player's vessel, has the power to save or destroy. But Susie, immune to our influence, is the only one who will never give up trying to do the right thing. And this is where it all comes full circle. The Asgore of Chapter 5, just like his Undertale counterpart, will be a tragic king, unable to rule or stop the catastrophe he himself has unleashed. The Titan he summons will be the physical embodiment of his hell, hell, his guilt, and his despair. Because Asgore's Titan is truly despair incarnate, a being born from the regret of a boss monster. And what is the only force Gerson names that can overwrite the darkness? A white pen known as hope. Asgore's Titan is despair. Susie is hope. I believe we are headed for a collision of these two absolute concepts. Susie, the dragon from the prophecy, the one who chose eternity for her friends, is the only force in the universe that can face that mountain of regret. She, who is immune to the player's direct influence, is the only one who can write an ending that not even the prophecy dared to imagine. The prophecy ends with Asgore, and the only hope lies with Susie. But this leaves us with one final question, one that not even Gerson could answer. If Susie is the only one who can do the right thing, and she refuses to sacrifice the Darkners, but the prophecy says there is only one way, what choice does she have left? Gerson calls her the dragon. The prophecy links her to eternity, and the only way requires a sacrifice. It's possible that to save everyone, Susie may have to fulfill a different prophecy, one where instead of sacrificing her friends, she has to sacrifice herself. This is one of the most theorized endings, and it has a bark basis, the mention in Undertale of someone named Susie who never appears, as if Susie's decision in Deltarune rips her from the reality of both dimensions, leaving only an echo of her existence. But that is a topic for another video. Now the question is for you. What do you think will be the final spark that ignites Asgore's inferno of jealousy? Will it be seeing Toriel and Sans together? Which would be pretty funny, honestly. And the most important question, if the prophecy demands a sacrifice and Susie refuses to destroy the Darkners, is her own sacrifice the true only way? Is she destined to disappear and become the echo of Susie? Or will she use that white pen Gerson spoke of to forge an ending that not even the prophecy could foresee? Leave your theories in the comments. I always read them.